Governor Walker makes it official today. He is seeking a third term in office. Walker has an experienced campaign team in place. He is again expected to be a formidable fundraiser. But unlike 2014, there is a large field of Democratic challengers. And what the political climate will be like in 2018 is anybody's guess. We're talking the race for governor today with our political panel, Christian Schneider, the columnist for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and John Nichols, associate editor of the Capital Times and correspondent for The Nation. Gentlemen, good to have you back on the program.
Hey, thanks.
So let's talk about the relative strength of Scott Walker as he heads into this re-election bid. Christian Schneider, I'll begin with you.
Okay.
How strong is Scott Walker?
He's looking pretty good. I mean, he's coming off a kind of a re-election type of budget, and it's a re-election budget because it has a lot of things in it that people like. You know, he's able to hold the line on taxes. He's able to spend more money on schools. And I think it's reflected in the polls. The last Marquette poll had him at his highest level in forever. And he's actually the most popular politician in the state right now with 48% favorability. So everything right now actually looks pretty good. And, you know, you have the field running against him that doesn't have anybody that's really sticking out at this point either. So that's going to help him out a lot.
John Nichols, is he in a strong position as he begins this bid?
Well, I'll just start out with the line. He's the most popular politician in the state with 48% approval. I mean, 52% of people aren't that excited about you. You know, this is that kind of year, and so we have to understand that this is a very volatile time in our politics. There is no one in Wisconsin today who is more emblematic of establishment, state government, been there a long time, career politician than Scott Walker. Now, you could see that as all a negative. There is the flip side of it. He is an incredibly skilled politician. He's good at what he does. He does anticipate problems. He's lousy at running for president, but he's pretty good at running for governor of Wisconsin. I don't think he's particularly more popular than he's been before, but he's usually been able to get 51, 52% of the vote, and he is meticulously using state government to build a campaign, right? He's given $3 billion to Foxconn. He's running around, discovered northern Wisconsin recently. I mean, so he's working hard, and I would say that when you add it all up, he's a strong candidate because of that.
So back a few months ago, we were all talking about how nobody wanted to run against Scott Walker, and now it's everybody wants to run against Scott Walker. Is that a good or bad thing for Democrats?
For the Democrats that want to run, it's a good thing because I wrote a little while ago that the more people that get in the race, it seems like the more people want to get in the race. You know, nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, because if somebody gets in the race, they can presumably win with, you know, 20, 25% of the vote if you start splitting the vote 8 or 9 ways. So that's actually an incentive for a lot more people to get into the race. You know, Madison Mayor Paul Soglin says he might get in the race that normally wouldn't. So, yeah, but the downside of that is you don't really have anybody that really stands out as a front runner.
Is there a front runner in that race, John?
I think maybe Tony Evers, because he's run
statewide
several times statewide. He has backing from some prominent players. I think he may have a bit of an advantage there, but I don't think it's overwhelming. I think it's the kind of advantage that puts you around 20% rather than at 40. But I will, just on the primary question, which I think is a really important one, no Democrat in the modern era has been elected governor, not since Gaylord Nelson in 58, I think, but in all of our recent years, you went through a primary, a tough primary. And so a primary is exceptionally good for the Democratic Party. They need it. Imagine if all you had was the Republican Senate primary, and all the energy is over there. Nobody's talking about the Democrat running against Scott Walker all summer long. It's not going to be that. And so I think they benefit from it. But I also think that all of these candidates still have an immense amount of definition ahead of them.
Sure.
And the guy who you have to watch in this circumstance is Dana Wachs. He has stepped up on the Foxconn deal. Very critical, very challenging. He's going to be in a high-profile position in coming weeks. And it's really almost like a tryout, you know. How do you handle this? How do you come across as gubernatorial and capable of raising a tough issue? That might bump him up a bit as well.
A couple wild cards in this race. Christian, I'll have you address this first. Donald Trump. What does Donald Trump mean for the 2018 Wisconsin gubernatorial race?
He is kind of the unindicted co-conspirator in this whole election. He kind of hovers over the whole thing. There are 2 ways this could go for Scott Walker. It could be the Trump effect could be bad for him in how he responds to the things that Trump does on a day-to-day basis, how he manages the Republican Party, which seems to be split pro-Trump, anti-Trump. I think he's done a pretty good job to this point of kind of straddling those two worlds among Republicans here in Wisconsin. But the other thing is that could be good for Walker is Trump is going to suck so much air out of the political scene here in Wisconsin. The things that he does, the things that he says, the thing that he tweets, they're just going to soak up so much media effect that the Democrats that are trying to make headway, that are trying to make stories and point out this and that, you know, it's going to. People only have so much capacity to follow, you know, certain, you know, political things. So, you know, I think Trump could actually, you know, kind of soak up all the media that these people would need in order to challenge Walker.
John, I want to ask you about Foxconn because it's such a big story in the last year. How does that play in this election?
Biggest crony capitalist deal in the modern era for a state. Criticized by every business journal around the country. You know, any serious analyst says it's ridiculous the amount of money that's been given. It's incredibly irresponsible. And
how do you really feel about it?
Well, just to give you a little layout, but I just also want to suggest that politically, I have a hard time figuring out how Ladysmith is going to get all that excited about Foxconn, or how Ashland, or how La Crosse. And unless Scott Walker can figure out how to say that $3 billion somehow is going to benefit you, I think that it's a golden issue for somebody running against Walker to say, you know, boy, Scott Walker found $3 billion, but he didn't give any to you.
John Nichols and Christian Schneider, we appreciate your time today. My conversation with John and Christian will continue now on the web. We're going to be talking about the U.S. Senate race here in Wisconsin. Kind of an interesting one, particularly the Republican primary. You'll find that on the upfront section of WISN.com. And you'll find coverage of Governor Walker's announcement on the site of our editorial partner, WisPolitics.com. Look for it on the election blog. When we come back, the idea to make UW colleges branches of nearby universities. We'll hear why some faculty members are concerned. That's next on Upfront.